There is a saying, an old soldier never dies. This is especially true for our veterans. They may be retired, but they're not out. This is a story that honestly is good, and I'll be honest, you guys should check out. It is a story by someone called Alot, and this thing was published in February 4th of 2006 and was completed in July 15th, 07. This is an old fan fiction, but one that's actually really good. The story is called Old Soldiers Never Die, and for good reason of that title is because we have seen a ton of Harry Potter fanfictions before. We have seen military Harry Potter fanfictions, some never completed and others started but never finished. And others finished but feeling a little hollow. This one is not that. And yes, before anyone brings it up, this one of course is a Harry Potter Hermione ship. But in a very fun and interesting way. So how does the story begin? The story begins when Harry Potter is a little pissed. Rightfully fucking so. And basically is trying to figure out a way how to kill people of his own kind. His Uncle Vernon, of course, in a very much so turn of events, hands him a gun, a Webley, an honest-to-God Webley revolver. And what I love about this is that this starts a journey for Harry Potter where he originally wanted revenge. He originally wanted to basically kill people, the Death Eaters, and kill Voldemort, into something a little bit more. And we see this journey of his just sort of evolving. And we see this sort of point of view evolve as well. I'm not gonna lie, I fucking love it. Especially the governmental aspects of it. And yes, there is a governmental aspect that we are going to take a look at, or at least that we are going to see in this story. And one that would make a really good movie, or even a fan film. Not even joking on this. This is honest to God really damn good. But Harry, of course, basically is given a revolver, a Webley Mark IV revolver in caliber .445, which is 445 Webley. Basically just a freaking 45 caliber gun on steroids. The cool thing about it is that there are Death Eaters across the way in his fucking place, and he tells Vernon to stay inside. So he goes over and kills them. And Dumbledore and the Order, of course, come around, and Dumbledore is gobstopped at what Harry did. And Harry, of course, literally just tells him, you can't reform these guys. And this is something I think a lot of people kind of do get a little upset about, and do point out that this is a fucking war. Voldemort is not going to give any quarter. This is a war. Wars have casualties. You can't save everyone. You can't redeem everyone. If you can take some prisoners of war, take some prisoners of war. But most of the time, when you're fighting, it's kill or be killed. And in Harry's case, he kills them. Because Death Eaters do not have any sort of redemption. Death Eaters do not feel any sort of empathy. Death Eaters do not require quarter. So show them no quarter, for they will show you none.
Shoot 'em all and let God sort 'em out.
But when actually, literally freaking, stormed by the press, it just gets great. Like, they're basically trying to ask him, what's going on, because Harry Potter, in front of God and everyone, literally, let me actually read you, because this is all in chapter 1. Here's what Harry Potter says in front of the reporters, in front of God and everyone, because this is really damn good. I killed several people today, but since they were all Death Eaters, well, let's just say that I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I've been fighting Voldemort since I entered the Wizarding World, and so far as I'm concerned, this is just the latest in a long series of skirmishes. When asked about his plans, this was his response. His plans are to leave the Wizarding World. The last year has shown me what you truly think of me. An attention-seeking boy is what your paper called me, isn't it? From now on, the Wizarding World can rot for all I care. As so long as Voldemort leaves me alone, then I have no reason to take an active role in the defeat. In his defeat, I mean. If you want my help, then you'll have to pay me quite a bit for it. This is where things get really good, because he points out a lot of cool things, and actually makes a really good fucking statement here. Why should he risk his life and limb if their version of cops essentially gets paid? When their version of police, their wizarding police, auras, or whatever the hell you want to call them, their hit wizards, whatever, they get paid. But he isn't. They want him to fight Voldemort? Fucking pay him. You want him to be able to do this shit? Fucking pay him. He's not doing this out of the charity of his heart anymore. He tried that, it failed, it got someone he liked. He got someone he considered a friend killed, in front of him, mind you, by Voldemort. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm fucking talking about. He's done with the wizarding world, essentially, and wants out. Unless they pay him. Then by all means, he'll solve the problem with the Death Eaters.
Fool me once, I'm mad. Fool me twice, how could you? Fool me 3 times, you're officially that guy. Okay, you know the one. You go to the bar, he's like, this suit is officially is a Giorgio Armani. Ask my dad knows him. Fuck you! I ain't having that shit!
Now the best part about this is that when Dumbledore tries to get Harry to actually come to his senses, try to get him to come back and basically see sense, Harry Potter has seen sense. He knows that in this war, you cannot basically be kind to the Death Eaters. They won't be kind to you. And when Dumbledore says he knows Harry and will basically, this isn't him, and a very defiant fucking statement to him in front of God and everybody, snaps his wand and throws it to the ground. Packs up his shit and starts leaving. And as he's doing so, another reporter from the Goblet of Fire shows up, that little bitch, essentially, and she conducts an interview with him and asks him questions. And I recommend you go read that section of the story, because it is actually really damn good. But his plan is actually to find the author of the book that actually is a retired sergeant major with the British Army, and is going to learn about firearms and basically get the skills needed to defeat the Death Eaters and, of course, kill Voldemort. However, that leads to something very good. You might be thinking, oh, what, he's going to turn into a mercenary? Better. He's going to be like Snake Eater? Better.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
If you can't figure it out, I'll spell it out for you. He gets his own military.
Groovy.
Now, something I should definitely point out about this story is that it is legitimately a good story. And a lot of the characters that do kind of come up are ones that are well built. Now, obviously, Harry does actually go towards what is essentially a form of VFW, or what would be, and before I continue, a little bit of explanation, because again, I'm not familiar with British veterans, or how the British military veterans are, because I'm more familiar with the US military veterans. So here we have a few veteran organizations. One of them that I'm very much so familiar with and am trying to work with, especially in my local area, is the VFW, or Veterans of Foreign Wars. This is a veteran organization, and it is veteran-ran as well, and is, to my knowledge, attached to the military of sorts. But the big thing about that, though, is Harry goes to essentially what is a veteran of foreign wars, where all the veterans are for the British Armed Forces, to go meet with the Sergeant Major, or, for anyone who understands the military, the Smage. The Smage is, of course, that one NCO, the non-com, who tries to keep the incompetent officers in fucking place, and tries to keep them from being any more incompetent than they already are, including some moronic generals. Seriously, there is no competent officer without a very much so competent and very much so seasoned Smage. Believe me on that. Anyway. So, yeah. Harry Potter does, of course, find the good Sergeant Major. The Sergeant Major, in the story, and yes, minor spoilers, being Hermione's great-grandfather, who served Her Majesty's armed forces and Her Majesty's military and the glory of the British Empire from World War II to Vietnam, if we're to believe his service record. The man is a war veteran, a battle-hardened one at that, and the oldest, or at least to my understanding, the oldest who survived in their version of the VFW, served with Her Majesty's military from the Napoleonic Wars. And sadly, they lost that man. And the cool part is that all of them are squibs, like I said before. And there's a lot into that that is actually really cool, and I wish J.K. Rowling would have actually explored a little more. But what I mean by that is that in the story itself, the government does know about the magic world, and more or less has a minister, or at least an ambassador of sorts, attached to that world to understand it. But the reason Harry Potter is here is because of the Major's book, which talks about firearms and magic, as well as a few potions to help keep the firearm up and going. The cool thing about this is that when he talks to Harry, he's asking him questions, and starts to understand that the boy doesn't really know what he's wanting to do. And what he's wanting to do, and what he suggests to do, is he gets some military. And since the minister has offered to him for him to fight Voldemort, or Tom Riddle, or He Who Shall Not Be Named, is to essentially have no restrictions, be funded, and have the ability to do what he sees fit. That sounds like a military, doesn't it?
Marveled at its beauty.
So the good Sergeant Major calls up a few of his other sergeants, one, of course, being Jones. No, not that Lance Corporal Jones, but I'll be honest, this story does have a Dad's Army feel about it, and I'll be honest, I'm cool with that. I love Dad's Army, and I'm happy that there are a lot of episodes on YouTube that I can actually fully enjoy, as well as enjoy some on Netflix as well. I don't know if Dad's Army is still on Netflix or not, and many of you may correct me in the comments section, but for those of you who have not seen Dad's Army, go look it up. Go look up the movies. Especially the theatrical remake film that they did a long time ago. Really, really good British military comedy, in sort of the same vein as Hogan's Heroes. So, the good Sergeant Major tells his boys, "How'd you like to be back in the army?" And they say, hell yes. And there is a lovely scene in the reasoning why they are willing to sign back up. And basically comes to a soldier's poem, where when the soldier reports to St. Peter in heaven, he'll tell St. Peter, just another soldier reporting in, because I've served my time in hell. Literally, these soldiers from the Sergeant Major basically saying that they are wasting away. They are skilled, trained soldiers, and they know nothing more than soldiering, and have a hard time still, especially with how old they are and the wars they fought in, especially all of them in this auxiliary, essentially, or in this British version of the VFW, being essentially combat veterans, and know nothing but killing. So, when that whole thing comes up, and that conversation does come up, they tell Harry they're proud to die. They're happy to die serving, standing, and fighting, than die not doing anything at all. Because they don't feel they deserve to die that way. And I'll be honest, that was heart-touching and heartbreaking as well, because as a son of a soldier myself, I have heard stories like this. I have talked to people like this, and a lot of them do have that mindset. A lot of them don't, but a lot of them do. My own grandpa, who is a Vietnam veteran, thought the same way as well. And sadly did die from cancer because of the war, when he was exposed to Agent Orange. And I'll be honest, this story did bring a tear to my eye. Not as a reader, but as the son and the grandson and the great-grandson and a great-great-great-grandson, basically a son of soldiers, of military veterans. This story will click with a lot of military kids, as well as a lot of military-minded readers, or those who know veterans, who are veterans themselves. This story legitimately will click with you, and it is good. But, aside from that, aside from the heartbreaking stuff, the meeting does actually come with the minister. And as such, the good Sergeant Major basically tells his other non-coms, hey, why don't we accompany the good lad to the meeting, eh? And they do. The minister, of course, is a bumbling idiot, Cornelius Fudge, and Harry basically lays it out. You want my help? You're gonna pay me. You're gonna do this. And even the Sergeant Major, as well as a few of the other non-coms around him, literally tell him, we're doing it our way. Not your way, our way. And we have full exemption, we have full support to do it our way.
Now you listen to me, jerk-off. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Quit being part of the fucking problem and put the other guy back on.
And he agrees to it in front of everyone who vocally supports them. And it just gets better from there, because from there, they then go to the governmental offices, where they meet the ambassador, fill her in on everything. She calls in the military head. She calls in, of course, MI6, or MI5, whichever one you want to go with, basically a spook, and fills them in on this. They're fucking pissed. And they give Harry the full support. Harry's then made a major, and the ceremonial military unit is the 95th Rifles of Her Majesty's Royal Army. Or Royal Military, whichever one you want to go with. Oh wait, I did the wrong salute. So, yeah, not only does he have the support of course, the Royal Army, but he also has the support of the Royal Navy and the Marines. Because the veterans that do come from here, because they spread the word far and fucking wide, Harry gets the support and veterans of not only the Royal Marines, but also Royal Commandos, Royal Navy, Royal Air Force. I'm not joking on this. He even, later on in the story, gets support from, of course, Canada and Quebec. Yes, I know Quebec and Canada are technically the same, but if you talk to a Canadian and a Quebecian, yeah, no, there's apparently some blood there. I'm not even going to get into that. He even gets support from the good old-fashioned US of A, with some volunteer forces, and even some official military forces there that, yeah, not even, they're not even supposed to be there. They're just there as, quote-unquote, observers.
Bullshit! Bullshit!
But when you got a foreign fighting legion there with you, well, we Americans ain't gonna stay out of a fight. The cool part of this story, though, is everything about it, actually. This story, as a whole, is a military veteran's story. It is a story of these old soldiers, these old dogs, literally getting a second chance at fighting, doing what they do best. There's even a scene where Dumbledore is scared shitless because when they find out about what's going on in Diagon Alley, about the Death Eaters attacking and Harry's forces fighting, which, by the way, Neville Longbottom even becomes a Mad Jack when he becomes an officer candidate, and even is an officer. And the uniforms themselves are green. But I'd like to imagine those uniforms being the old 1950s pattern uniforms. You know the ones I'm talking about. The uniforms of World War II to the 1950s and the 60s. I'd like to see those uniforms. That's what I'd like to imagine the uniforms they're issued with, considering they're a ceremonial unit. But the cool part about it is that Neville, his hand being cursed, of course, chops off his fucking hand, grabs his sword, literally charging into battle with his men. Bayonets fixed, of course.
Being used for! Kill! To kill what? Yes! With what? Well done, fine!
Freaking killing Death Eaters left and goddamn right. And finally, after the battle is won, of course, in their favor, and Dumbledore, of course, dumbfounded at what happened, worried, of course, the old coot. Which, by the way, there are other Harry Potter stories we will be covering about Dumbledore's own senileness or possible manipulativeness, which I am leaning more towards the former, of him being a manipulative bastard.
No shit.
Neville, of course, is a cool side story that I absolutely do love. He grows into his own character in this story, as not only a competent officer, but also having a strong sense of loyalty to Queen and country, and camaraderie for his commanding officer, Major Potter. they do lose soldiers in this battle, yes, but like I said, that's where that beautiful conversation comes from, of Harry being told they are willing to die, they want to die in battle, not on their feet, not, you know, they want to die standing, essentially. And again, beautiful fucking story. And it all accommodates to this conspiracy that is going on when Cornelius Fudge tries to go to the spook. Which, by the way, before I even forget, little thing to add on here, Hermione is also made a spy, essentially, an honorary member of the Ministry of Intelligence, essentially, a sort of female James Bond. And her and Harry kind of kick it off with a little bit of a, yeah, and of course there's also another thing with Neville and his grandfather. Again, so many cool storylines in this that are actually well done, and I do love it. My only big concern, my only big thing about it is that it abruptly ends, well, not really abruptly ends, it just kind of ends on a note that makes you wanting more of this, or at least someone to actually make their own version of this where it goes, because this is under 30 chapters, not even that, it's under 28 chapters, essentially. I think it's like 25 chapters, and it's good, especially the conspiracy aspect, because Cornelius Fudge tries to tell, Flubbing, of course, says that whoever the winner is in this final battle between Voldemort and Harry Potter's forces, nuke 'em. Instead, he says, nuts. And... so fucking good. So goddamn good. I fucking love it. Anyway. So, yeah, the final battle does come, and, yeah, bullet against magic. But either way, though. So they do the final battle is one that is spectacular, and won, obviously, by the military, because, again, bullets against magic. Yeah, as well as, I don't know, napalm. Lots and lots of napalm. Anyway, so yes, obviously Voldemort is killed in the end, but that isn't the end of the story. It continues then to, of course, a order from Her Majesty herself. When being told about what has happened, Her Majesty, basically pissed as all hell, tells Harry Potter, and essentially his unit, the 95th Rifles, to arrest Cornelius Fudge. Not wanting his friends to be involved and for them to have their hands cleaned of blood, Harry does do this. He carries out his orders and arrests all the Ministry of Magic under treasonous, well, charges of treason against the Crown. We are not amused. At which point in time, Cornelius Fudge is killed because he tried to raise a hand against the agent of the Queen, who was carrying out the Queen's orders. And then installs a military government, a sort of military occupation force of sorts, and basically is telling them that until such a time, he is to be the military governor of magical Britain until a proper governor is installed, and the magical world will be under the Queen's order and rule, will be reintegrated into Britain and the British Empire, and shall follow the laws of not only the Magna Carta, but also the rule of Her Highness, Her Majesty, the Queen of, well, Britain, Northern Ireland, the realms, and the Defender of the Faith. I hope I did that right, because I've been reading a lot of Queen Elizabeth stories with Harry Potter, and watching The Crown, of course, on Netflix, because that is a really damn good show. Like, dear God, guys, seriously, if you have to pirate it even, go fucking watch The Crown. It is, honest to God, a really good show. Especially with Matt Smith in the first season, like, goddamn. But as a whole, the story does end with an epilogue of Harry not being seen. Well, not exactly. He's still doing the job that is needed because a man of his skill and his girlfriend, presumably now wife of her skills, they're needed in the government. They're needed to handle situations around the world, be it magical or non-magical. And as such, do just that. They are essentially OSS spies, MI5 spies, MI6 spies, Special Operations, Black Ops, whichever title you want to go with, that's essentially what he's doing. And while we can assume he's working with sports and social, or SAS, we can already understand that this story should not end here. we should keep following Harry Potter. This story is short. And I mean that in a criminal sense. The author has built up this story so damn good and set up the idea of our veterans being magical, essentially. Those who are known as squibs or what have you. Those who have magic in them but can't do magic themselves. The fact that the author presents that idea is criminal, and that no one has done anything else with this idea. We are talking about soldiers who damn well could have served in the Revolutionary War, in the French Revolution, all the way up in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. All these conflicts are magical and have survived well up into their hundreds, but still are in fit fighting shape. And the fighting forces they do bring into this, not only do they bring, of course, veterans of the British military, they also bring in Gurkhas, they bring in the freaking Canadian forces, Quebecian forces, American forces. They legitimately... All of this is so damn good. And I implore my authors, my fellow viewers, my fellow avid readers of military fiction, or even just anyone who can do good with this idea, explore it. I'm not joking, explore this idea. Do something with it. Actually make something of this, because again, it's a great idea. I mean, hell, imagine it. Just to throw this idea out here, American Potter is fed up after everything essentially sees that after the second year, all hell's basically broke loose on him, and he has had enough of it, and decides to run away, and basically try and start a life, but instead actually goes and finds help somewhere else. Finds help with the veterans. Let's say he runs away to America. He runs away to America and runs into some military veterans, and they happen to be squibs. They recognize Harry as a wizard, and bring him into a VFW somewhere, and he starts explaining to them what's going on. One of them being a retired sergeant major, or maybe a retired general even, hears him and says, "You know what, son? I think we can help you out." Create expeditionary forces, like in World War I, where we had expeditionary forces, or volunteer forces going over to France. Freaking... Maybe there's some Harlem Hellfighters still around, kicking because they were squibs who served in the First World War, and maybe there's some old devil dogs. Again, the idea is there. Just, I'm begging you, my viewers, and those of my viewers who are authors, take this idea and go with it. I don't care if it's American veterans, I don't care if it's Quebecians, I don't care if it's Canadians, French, damn the French. Nothing against the French, just you're French. Japanese maybe, or hell, Australian, New Zealand, Russian even. Oh my god, the fucking Russians. The fucking Russians. Oh god, that would be hilarious. Patriotic war veterans of the Red Army. Oh god, that would just be fucking hilarious. Anyway, though, as a whole, this story is legitimately good. And it breaks my heart there isn't any more of these. And if there are, I may have missed them. But to those of you, I say, link down below in the pinned comment is this story. It is good. You can breeze through it in a day, or maybe even in a couple hours, depending on how fast you read. And share it with your friends. Share it with your fellow authors. Tell them about it. And to those who are also British, let me know how much I screwed up on the British titles for Her Highness, Her Majesty, the Queen. Let's wait a second. And for those of you who are British veterans, sound off in the comments section also, because I'd love to hear from you guys about how they represent them. And again, that's all I got. But, because of a recent donation of 150 bones...
What the fuck?
I'm not joking on that $150 donation.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
I'm going to be reviewing 2 books. One is 21 chapters, so expect a 1 and 2-parter to that one. It is a Halo and Mass Effect fanfiction crossover with John Spartan. Oh, not John Spartan, my bad. That's Demolition Man. With John Sierra 117. And another one at Battle Space, which of course is about a military officer going back to the Revolutionary War. Or being isekai'd, at least, to the Revolutionary War. And it's 200 fucking entries.
I have several questions.
Bad touch! Bad touch! Stranger danger!
Yeah, that one I might do just the first arc. Maybe. That might be a 2-parter. Anyway, though, thank you all for watching. As always, I've been Airsoft Al, and again, thank you to Coolhead1, aka Slinky Cat, on Discord for your donation. And thank you everyone out there who has supported the channel. Thank you all out there who have basically been helping with the donations and killing it with the donations. And thank you all so much for all your suggestions for stories. Yes, I see all your suggestions, but you gotta understand that if you keep piling them on, I'm not gonna be able to get to all of them. And it wears me down a bit, guys. So please, understand that I will get to your suggestions. I will get to the stories you want me to review. But again, you're gonna wear me down, and I don't like being weighed down. So, till next time, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Airsoft Al, the common man's airsofter, who is handling this crazy, crazy world of ours as best as humanly possible. As always, I will see all you lovely people in the next video. Till next time, later.